Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to day 19 of albums that are 50 years old in 2021. Of course, we're taking a look at our favorites from the magical year of 1971, one of the greatest years in rock and roll history, right? Tons of great albums from that year. What I've done here in this series, that's going to run throughout the month of February, 28 days of February, 28 favorites from 1971, turning 50 this year, as well as an honorable mention each day from that larger group of albums that I still love. They didn't quite make the cut of 28, but I still dig them quite a bit. So today, I know a lot of you guys have been asking, and I've seen this album show up in a lot of your picks throughout the course of the month so far, in the past 18 days. And you're probably wondering, Pete, your favorite band hasn't shown up yet. Well, today's the day. Released July 9th, 1971. Recorded at various studios. Delancey Studios, Olympic Studios, the Hermitage in North Devon. Produced by the band. Released on the Harvest label. I'm talking about Fireball from Deep Purple. I gotta say, I am a big fan of this album. And, you know, when you look at I always call them like the kind of the holy trinity of the early albums. This is definitely one of them. In Rock, Fireball, Machine Head. Always considered like, arguably the best of the Deep Purple canon. Of course, you can throw Burn in there as well, right? Because that's a very highly respected album from the band. But, most people always tend to favor Machine Head over Fireball. There are times where I actually enjoy Fireball a little bit more. Maybe because it's the one that's, Machine Head is a very well-played album, and it's an album I've personally played a lot myself, but a lot of radio hits on that album as well. But I think Fireball has some of the greatest deep tracks out of the entire Deep Purple discography, especially from the Mark II era of the band. So, and interestingly enough, and a lot of bands did this back in the day, you had slightly different track listings from the UK release and the US release, or the European and the US release. So for all our European friends, when you got this album back in the day, of course, you got Fireball, No, 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 Demon's Eye, Anyone's Daughter, The Mule, Fools, and No One Came. And here in the US, instead of Demon's Eye, we got Strange Kind of Woman, right? Which, depending on the territory, obviously, that you lived in, one got included, the other was released as a single. So, for me, the album, when you buy the CD, obviously, the remaster, you got both of them. To me, the album is fully complete with both of those tracks, because you can't have one without the other. And quite frankly, we got kind of the shaft here in the U.S. by not getting Demon's Eye on the album, because Demon's Eye is a freaking great song. I love Demon's Eye. But anyway, back to the album as a whole and the songs. I mean, Fireball, the title track kicks off. Fast and Furious, a lot of people talk about how it's kind of one of the first speed metal or thrash songs, right? That incredible Ian Pace drumming, right? The raging riff, it's Fast and Furious. It's a house of fire. I love Fireball. Love Fireball. Underrated gem from their catalog. A lot of people talk about, favorite Deep Purple songs, and, everybody's, Highway Star and Smoke on the Water, Woman from Tokyo, Burn, all the usual suspects. But man, Fireball doesn't get enough credit. Love it. No, No, No is a lot of fun. Another good heavy song. Great John Lord organ in that. Totally dig that. Chorus is great. Ian Gillan sounds great on there. Like I said, Demon's Eye. Man, bluesy and heavy. Dun, 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 dun. What a groove on that song, right? Richie's guitar licks, just great. Honestly, the only song on this album I don't like is Anyone's Daughter. I've never been into Anyone's Daughter. I know a lot of people who love it, and I totally get why you do. It's just not for me. To me, that kind of sounds like the band kind of doing a little Bob Dylan folky type thing. It's kind of quirky, but you guys know my opinion on Bob Dylan and stuff like that. So for me, that song has never worked. I've never enjoyed that song. The only one on the album I don't like. The Mule, obviously, is great. Awesome instrumental for the most part. It's mostly instrumental. And nice little solo from Pacey there. Fools and No One Came are absolutely terrific. Two crushers that end the album. Fools is this, got this menacing riff and this long kind of atmospheric kind of instrumental section, which I totally love. And then, No One Came is this big bruising heavy rocker to end out the album. And then, of course, the on the US side, you've got Strange Kind of Woman, which has got a classic riff. It's catchy, upbeat, obviously a favorite Deep Purple song for many people for a reason. So I totally dig it. And just a really fun, really good sounding album, and one of my favorites from this era of the band, if not any era of the band, to be quite honest. It's that good. So my honorable mention for today is another band. This was actually also pretty early on in their catalog, and ironically also it was their fifth album. So we got two bands here which pretty much Purple had the orchestral thing too, which I guess counts, but as far as studio albums go, the fifth studio album, and it is released in September 3rd, 1971, produced by the band for Reprise Records. We're talking about Future Games from Fleetwood Mac. So this would mark a shift in the band, obviously, because here we've got a guy named Bob Welch, you see him right there, joining the band. So by this point in time, Jeremy Spencer and Peter Green gone. You've got Mick Fleetwood and Christine McVie and John McVie as the kind of core of the band, along with Danny Kerwan, who Danny now being the kind of the long holdover from the guitar perspective, because this band had the three guitar players, and Peter Green, who was the de facto leader of the band, Jeremy Spencer, and Danny, right? Well, Danny is kind of like the last one left standing, and then they bring in Bob Welch, and Danny's kind of songwriting and guitar playing really at the forefront on this album. And it's a shame, he had a lot of kind of personal issues going on too, so his time in the band was not long after this, unfortunately. But I think he and Bob make a great guitar team. And, Danny Kerwan, really, really good player, really tasty player. And a lot of good stuff on this album. And again, this is kind of like a transition album for the band, moving away from that kind of like, standard British blues, the old style blues with some of the old time rock and roll rockabilly from Jeremy Spencer's point of view. Right here, you've got lots of kind of atmospheric, somewhat bluesy, somewhat jazzy rock and soft rock, little hints of country rock here and there as well. You got the gorgeous Woman of a Thousand Tears, right? You got Morning Rain, What a Shame, good up-tempo rocker, and then the title track is just filled with all sorts of really, really good kind of jazzy, introspective guitar solos and textures. That one's written by Bob Welch, but you got both guys really adding some really nice textures there. You got Sands of Time, another great song, Sometimes, Lay It All Down, and Show Me a Smile. And again, just nice kind of variance on the moods and textures throughout this album. Again, it's not a big bluesy album like the early stuff. It's not filled with all these instantly catchy, memorable songs like we would see from later, albums coming up, and certainly into the Buckingham Nicks era, right? But I think you've got this kind of mixing of styles which works so well here. And I think that what I love about the Bob Welch era of this band is that it's like the perfect bridge from the Green era to the Buckingham Nicks era. And it's got elements of both. Welch brings this kind of like, California thing to the band, which I think really, really worked and got them to where they eventually would go once he left the band. But really good, a lot of good guitar layers, solos and little riffs and textures and licks and things like that. And then, the vocals are outstanding. This is just a really good kind of, I don't even know the word. It's hard to describe this album because this album is, a little bit different from the couple that would come after it, but just really, really wonderful sounds on here and just really alluring. That's the word I'm looking for. Alluring music, alluring songs. It's like, you got some rockers, you got some kind of bluesy, jazzy numbers, you got some stuff that, people would call soft rock, I guess. But it's all really pleasing to the ear. A lot of really good guitar work on this album. Vocally, you got the nice keyboards from Christine. Just really, really solid record that I dig quite a bit. I can't stress enough to those of you watching who maybe have not listened to, and I'm going to be spending more time on Fleetwood Mac than Purple on this one, but and we're going to cover this in an upcoming Ranking the Album show, which is we're going to do the entire Fleetwood Mac catalog. But there's something about the Welch era that I think, people always tend to, obviously gravitate towards the Fleetwood Mac self-titled album and Rumors and everything after that, right? It's the most well-known lineup of this group. And then you have the people who are really, really loyal to the Peter Green era, the early albums. And sometimes the Welch era kind of gets forgotten. And I think there's just some fantastic music on the handful of albums that came kind of in between, right? The in between the bread, the starting and the ending, right? Just really good stuff. And I love Danny's playing on this album. And I think it's just interesting to think if he would have kind of stayed in the band, how those successive albums would have been had he not. But then, again, Bob Welch then comes more to the forefront there. So, I don't know, but I love all these Bob Welch albums. I think they're just really, really magical. And again, they're fairly, because they weren't, big, huge selling albums back in the day with all these tons of radio hits, and it was not like the early, really influential stuff that the Peter Green era was. Kind of gets forgotten, and when you listen to the Welch era albums today, they're really fresh and almost new to me, especially because I wasn't listening to a lot of those albums back in the day. I was listening to both of the others. So that's why for me the Welch era stuff is just kind of like, it's just so great to discover that, much later on in my Fleetwood Mac listening. So there you have it. I've talked a lot about this, but we'll get more into that when we do eventually, and hopefully it'll be sometime in March, the Fleetwood Mac Ranking the Album show. But yeah, my main pick today is Fireball. Love this album, classic Deep Purple, one of my favorites from the band, and my honorable mention, Future Games from Fleetwood Mac. List yours below in the comment section, what your picks for today are, your top pick as well as your honorable mention. And of course, we're going to do this tomorrow and all of next week as we finish out the month of February, and then we move into something new for March. So that's coming up. What else? Martin Popoff coming up on the channel in moments. All right, we are going to talk about bands who had a big, huge album and followed it up with a kind of a stinker, right? So that's coming up next. More stuff happening over the weekend and into next week. So a lot of things on the calendar. Make sure you tune into Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares live on Monday night with another cool topic. All right, we're picking our favorite releases from the year 1982. And then Tuesday night is the debut of In the Prog Seat. I've got 3 gentlemen going to be joining me for a nice discussion about some of our favorite prog and prog metal concept albums. So for the first episode of In the Prog Seat, that is happening. There's going to be I'm not sure yet if it's going to be a weekly or bi-weekly panel show. It's at least going to be every other week, so a couple times a month, with a rotating cast of guests that are going to help me out on that. And it's like I said, it's going to kind of be like the Hudson Valley Squares, but strictly for prog. So that's going to be coming up on Tuesday night, so stay tuned for that, and a lot more stuff next week. So we'll see you all then. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. If you like what you see, give us a like, hit that Ko-Fi link below, make a donation if you'd like to help out the channel, and thanks for everything, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.